Welcome to another Flute Center of New York sponsored review. We has some flutes. They actually sent me more flutes than I am actually going to look at today. I just like including the box opening parts. So let's get right to it. While I'm at it, if you guys want to use my code JAF, you can get free shipping within the US. You get a 10-day trial instead of 7 days. You get an 18-month warranty on your new flute. And I am tearing this very poorly, and you can take up to 4 instruments out on trial at a time. I do earn a small commission on each new flute that is purchased using this code, so thank you very much if you're doing that. It really helps a girl out. If you want to take flutes out on trial, just contact the Flute Center of New York. I will put their contact info in the bottom bar below. They're really, really nice, super easy to work with. Like, I've actually bought instruments from them too. If you are taking flutes out on trial, make sure you're actually in the market to buy, and the Flute Center of New York will actually price match any other authorized dealer, so you'll always know you're getting the best bang for your buck. When you are trying flutes, make sure you take off all rings and dangly jewelry that can potentially scratch the flute. Never use the polishing cloth, the cleaning rod, or the cleaning gauze that comes with each new flute because they're not yours yet. Last but not least, when I try these flutes out on camera for you guys, I'm just going to describe to the best of my ability how I think these flutes like to be played, but it's really up to you to decide whether they actually match you. Like in Harry Potter, just as the wand chooses the wizard, so the flute chooses the flutist. Let's open this baby up! So this is actually going to be for the next review coming up, so stay tuned for some Powell action. This must be the Haynes Q3 that we are looking at today. The other one, whoa, it got brighter all of a sudden. Production value is very high over here. Looks like this one is the Powell. We will be looking at this in the next flute review. We've got a postcard for their podcast, Flute Unscripted, and then we have this guy again. This is your trial postcard information. Ready to purchase? They tell you what to do. Didn't find your flute? Not to worry. They can just keep working with you. They have all the little rules here about trying flutes that I just listed earlier. Part of this review is actually going to be like a first impressions as well, because I actually personally really like to see people's reactions to things, so might as well film my own reaction to things. So we're looking at Haynes Classic Flute Model Q3, sterling silver hand cut Haynes Classic head joint. I believe this is the one with the 14K rose gold riser. Sterling silver body and mechanism, Haynes pinned mechanism, drawn tone holes, French open hole model, pointed key arms, gold springs, modern Haynes scale, Pisone S2 pads, 0.016 tubing, offset G, split E mechanism, C-sharp trill key, B foot joint, handmade. This flute, if you just got the normal sterling silver hand cut Haynes classic head joint, is $8,090. We're looking at higher end models here now, all right? The Haynes classic head joint in sterling silver with the 14K rose gold riser, which is what is in here. I know because they actually have a label in here that tells you exactly what's inside. So the 14K R here means that this flute has a 14 karat riser. If you get this 14K rose gold riser classic head joint with this flute, then it's just an additional $430. But if you were to get this head joint alone, it would be $1,355. Looks like this is very typical French model flute case. It's very soft. I don't know why I'm smelling it, but we've got a zipper on the outside, very normal. We have a shoulder strap. Ooh, the shoulder strap has like a little pad on it to make it more comfortable. Oh, and it looks like the buckles here are actually metal, not plastic. We have 2 zippers. Just gonna open this up. Black plush lining in here. It's really soft. I am noticing that the plush can get sort of caught in the zipper. Be careful with that. Very typical French model case here. You got these 2 buttons that you have to simultaneously slide to the side, and then the whole case will just pop open. Looks like in here we also have a Haynes microfiber polishing cloth. Doesn't look like we have a cleaning rod or a cleaning gauze included in this set, but that's okay. If it is missing, just ask the Flute Center of New York. Ooh. Look at this. Oh, I have little like plushy bits. That zipper definitely is pulling out some of that plush lining. So we have here this beautiful electric royal blue velvet lining on the inside of here. Ooh, very nice. Looks like we've got split E mechanism, pointed key arms. Oh my gosh, there's totally a C-sharp trill. I clearly was not paying attention when I was reading out the specs. I've been saying in some of my recent videos about how I've discovered that, you know, I'm such a visual learner, and when I play stuff, I don't actually listen to myself. Turns out I can talk and not listen to myself. Looks like we got a gizmo here. I do have to say the pinky keys look very large. Beautiful head joints. I'm just gonna take a look inside at the riser. Yep, that's definitely rose gold. So the riser is a little donut that connects the lip plate to the actual tube of the head joint. So if you look inside, you can actually see the donut. That is really cool. Whatever the riser is, that tends to affect your sound quite a bit. So you could have a silver head joint, but if your riser is gold and then you play into it, it'll mellow out your sound quite a bit. I think it's time for me to give this a try. Just so you know what my immediate thoughts are, I know that Haynes projects like crazy, so I'm expecting a lot of projection. Low notes feel like this, and then high notes feel like this. Very counterintuitive. I'm also expecting a lot of vibration happening around here. First things first, we're going to do some harmonics. I played a low B first. Whoops, I meant to play low C. But now you heard, literally the first thing I played was a low B, and it responded very beautifully. Yeah, as expected. Harmonics just pop right out. It's like no effort. Getting that topmost harmonic out that I just got, I actually can't even sustain that on my own flute. High notes, you really feel like you're aiming it down this way. Low notes, you feel like you're aiming it up this way. The resonance, all of it, regardless of register, happens up front. The air here is like buzzing and vibrating. But the interesting thing that I found was, in order to round out the sound to that very kind of like typical classical flute sound, I'm having to round out the bottom of my mouth a lot. So I feel like I play like this, like I've stuffed a wad of tissue on the bottom of my mouth. I wonder if that's the area where that will affect tone color. That's my initial reaction right now. I think that's it, but we'll find out soon. Wonderful projection. You guys hear that? That's crazy. Next, we're gonna do a little bit of noodling around, seeing how things feel across all the registers. That is very loud and extremely responsive. The low notes are also extremely responsive. The only reason why you guys might be hearing that the low B sounds like it doesn't want to come out at first is because the spacing of the keys is a little bit bigger than I'm used to. I play a Brannon normally. Brannons are known to have a smaller tube actually, and so like the whole thing feels tiny compared to most other flutes. When I do have all of the holes covered, holy cow, that low B really comes out. The high notes are interestingly less resistant than the middle register. At least this is how I feel playing with a lot of support. When you play with a lot of support, like, oh my gosh, those high notes just pop right out. I don't think that's actually very surprising for a Haynes, but it is just surprising to feel. You would normally think that high notes would be really, really resistant to you. If I were to work on this flute way more, I would be able to open up the middle register and the lower register just as much. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt, those high notes are naturally very open, which means I probably can play those with relative ease. Like if I were to play an F sharp, that's an F sharp. That should not feel that easy. Now we are heading into tone color land. I did mention before that I think it's that like lower jaw area. Whatever shape that part is in, I think it's gonna affect tone color. So let's try it. I'm very close. I actually find that it's more in the middle of your mouth. No, just above, just above. So like while you're playing, I'm manipulating the space in that region. So if I make it wider and rounder on the sides, then the sound will become wider and rounder and richer. But if I just kind of like pinch everything inward, then it turns into that lovely sort of hollowy sound. Let's see how much of a wooden flute I can sound. I don't know if you can even tell that like I'm actually doing it with my embouchure. I realize now it's not just inside of my mouth. Like I think the resonance of this flute is happening so far up here that when I'm changing the shape of my mouth to create different tone colors, I have to actually change the outside of my mouth too. That's me trying to sound like a wooden flute. Let's try to sound like a reed instrument now. So there is a huge tone color change around the E flat, E, F, F sharp range. I would have to work on that quite a bit, but that's actually a very typical issue on a lot of flutes. The range from D sharp, E, F to F sharp, there's like this drastic like wispier change in tone color than the notes around it. I'll work on it a bit. The placement of that F sharp needs to be just like a hair higher. I know what it is. You know, like I was saying how low notes, the airstream in your mouth should be shooting upwards and then you let your lips redirect. And then the high notes need to be the opposite. They need to go down. Between the D sharp and the E is exactly where that changes. Yeah, so I'm going D sharp, E, F. I think that's why I'm feeling the front of it is getting higher. So if I had more time, I would work on that a lot more. You actually have to work on that range on any flute that you get. It's just that I have found what you actually need to do for this one. Hopefully that helps you guys out. Now let's do dynamics. Let's try higher one. Okay, it's all in the front of your mouth. If you want that super loud sound, you have to pretend that you have like this giant ball in the front half of your mouth, just taking up all of that space. And then you want to fill that space with air, just pour it into the flute. But then when you want to play soft, you turn that huge ball into like a tiny little speck inside of your mouth. Just like kind of like hold it in the middle, all in the front half of your mouth. None of this is happening in the back half of your mouth. So, oh, and then, oh, that works really nicely too, though. That is crazy how easy that is on this flute. I really like the tone color too. I think it's because of that 14 karat rose gold riser. There's a certain quality to the sound that reminds me of my own flute. I recently discovered that I'm not a truly gold player. I'm a rose gold player. Now it is time for the mechanism. So we're going to play an F major scale, 2 octaves, because it goes just low enough and it goes just high enough without going absolutely crazy. Okay, so I would say the mechanism has a little bit of resistance to it, but it is still very bouncy. I have a student whose main instrument is the piano. There's always a little bit of resistance to your fingers, so she actually prefers that on the flute. Resistant keys just made me think of that. I thought I'd share that with you guys. Let's try out some of these trill fingerings. Low C to D and high C to D. We also have a C sharp trill. That's really interesting. So the C sharp trill has a very nice resistance to it. Wow, all of the trill fingerings, including the B flat lever. I would say that the B flat lever has a little bit less resistance than the other trill keys. I would say maybe the C sharp trill has the most resistance out of all of these trill keys. These have a really nice bounce to them. B flat lever has the least resistance, but it's still very nice and bouncy. I really like that. Let's try the gizmo. Oh, that's interesting. There's a little bit more resistance to this gizmo than I'm used to for gizmos. Also, you did hear that it did correct the pitch of that high C quite nicely. The mechanism on here definitely is meant for someone with a bit of a heavier touch. All right, last but not least, we are doing articulation. So let's start out with single tongue. I'm trying to feel out exactly where my tongue is hitting. Okay, so it's not quite right between my top teeth and my bottom teeth. It's actually hitting the bottom half of my top front teeth. So this is considered very forward tonguing, and I'm not surprised by that because the resonance is all happening up here. Typically, your tongue will kind of match where it resonates. If it resonates further up, your tongue is going to be further up. If you feel the resonance happening further back, your tongue will also be a little bit further back. Let's try out double tonguing. The T part of the double tonguing obviously is in the same spot as single tonguing. For the K, I feel like I'm trying to cheat it as far forward as possible. Maybe like a very light touch. Think like barely grazing the roof of my mouth. It is not going back into my throat whatsoever. Also, quick tip, if you want your tonguing to sound less forceful, think of them as releases rather than attacks. That basically wraps it up. This is a gorgeous flute. I am noticing it's a little heavier than I am used to, but then again, it might be because we have so much going on here with the split E and the C sharp trill. All of that does add some weight to the flute. I didn't get tired at all playing for you guys, so I don't think that's a problem. I'm thinking that this flute can probably take you through university, through music school, no problem. This thing has such a huge range of tone colors. It's actually crazy for the price point that you have. You get a really nice warmth to the sound, but at the same time you get a very nice soloistic, shimmery sound. It's perfect for studying solo flute music, especially if you're looking for projection and ease of high register stuff. This is the one. Thank you so much for joining me in today's review. It was really, really fun. Make sure you follow the Flute Side of New York on their Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I will put a link to all their social media in the bottom bar below. If you want to catch me during the week, I am on Twitch and sometimes on Patreon, but otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Bye. I've already been filming for 20 minutes. How is that even freaking possible? And I'm only even doing a review on one flute. I am actually ridiculous.